I'm not going to answer the question
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Keep yapping, man.
The people understand you.
You're the
way,
worst
you are a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views in News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about, as you have already seen in the clip, that we'll be talking about the US presidential election 2020. Now, this is going to be a very interesting election. Even the last one was, since everybody expected Hillary Clinton to win and we were expecting a Democratic president there. But interestingly, it was Mr. Donald Trump who ended up winning that election, and now he is contesting for the second term. This time, it isn't Sandy Berners or somebody else. This time, it is Mr. Joe Biden, the former vice president. And interestingly, I mean, when you look at their debate or the kind of arguments they were having yesterday or this morning, let's put it this way, were very interesting. Internal issues, external issues, domestic problems, as well as all the related issues to USA at the global level in the international arena. So we'll be talking about that in detail, that what exactly is going to happen. It is very, very difficult to predict actually when it comes to the US elections. But now most of the people think that when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the internal issues, when it comes to domestic health care for that matter, or regarding the pensions, I mean, there are a lot of domestic disputes there. So today we'll be talking about the Trump-Biden presidential debate. That is going to be the major focus of our discussion today. We'll be also talking about the impact of US presidential elections on the global politics, whether it's about Afghanistan or South Asia for that matter, Europe or even China. We'll be also talking about US presidential elections regarding the scapegoating of China, and that is also pretty important because whenever you hear Mr. Donald Trump, he always ends up blaming the Chinese. And then, will US policies change under Joe Biden, especially related to the international issues? What exactly is brewing in his mind? We'll be talking about that. Let me introduce you to our panelists in the studio. We have with us, on my right, is Dr. Nasir Mahmoud Saab. Needs no introduction as a senior journalist, writer, columnist. Thank you very much, sir. And we have with us Qazi Humayun Saab, again, is a senior diplomat, former ambassador. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And we will be talking to Mia Sanaullah Saab, who's also a former ambassador, senior diplomat, sir. Pleasure to have you as well. But let me start off from Dr. Nasir Mahmoud Saab, sir. First of all, when you hear these two senior-most politicians, one of them is going to be the next president for another 4 years. It could be Joe Biden, it could be Donald Trump. Most seasoned and one of the most, I would say, in terms of age, senior most in that regard also. But when you hear them saying, shut up and let me talk, I mean, what does that reflect? Is it true democracy or is it something going on just because the opponent is Donald Trump and he maybe deserves that kind of compliment from the other candidate?
Well, apart from just one outburst, I would say, when I think it happened for the first time in any presidential debate when one presidential candidate gives a shut up call to another. This is the first time. But apart from that, overall the debate has been, I would say, two words for the debate. It was bitter and it was chaotic. Bitter in the sense that most of the time, as it happens, you know, most of the presidential debates in the past also have been bitter. They hurl accusations at each other. Sometimes they become personal also. So being bitter is nothing new. What was more disappointing was the chaotic nature of this debate. And I don't remember in my memory, I mean, I remember US presidential debates from 1980s at least. And in never any presidential debate has been so chaotic. And why I'm calling it chaotic? And that was because of Trump. Because Trump, they have now counted the number, how many times he interrupted. It was a 90-minute debate, and out of 90-minute debate, Trump interrupted 73 times.
Almost every minute.
Almost every minute he was interrupting. He was not allowing Trump to complete his, what he was saying. Though normally the protocol is that when one candidate starts speaking, at least for 2 minutes, the other candidate has to keep quiet so that the person can complete his
argument.
Yes, but he interrupted 73 times, and that's what made it chaotic. no worthwhile and appreciable discussion can take place when you keep interrupting every minute, and that's what Trump did. So what Trump did, Trump showed extreme indecency. I think it was indecent. Decency required not only from presidential candidates. In a normal conversation, everyday conversation, we are bound to use some decent approach towards the interlocutor, the other party. That's what he didn't do. So to me, it was bitter and chaotic. And the most defining factor of this was that one, I think, if you ask me, what was the one most important feature that you didn't like, that was his refusal, Trump's refusal to condemn white supremacists. And after that, there have been polls, American media has been conducting, only 70% people approved that Trump did the right thing. What that means around 70% people in America, they did not like it. Now, after 4 years of Trump's racist policies, because he has been racist right from the beginning, because he's populist, and when you are a populist leader, what you do, you target,
you capitalize on certain tribes.
Yes, you target minorities, you target smaller groups. He has been anti-immigration. He has not been talking, well,
anti-Muslim,
anti-Muslim, anti-black. In short, he himself believes probably in white supremacy, and that is evident, though he doesn't say that. But when he refuses to condemn white supremacists, that shows that he himself is a white supremacist. And that is going to, I think, and I hope, maybe it is my wishful thinking, but I hope that it will go against him, and it will be, if he loses, that will be one of the deciding factors. His outright, and then not only that, he refused to condemn. When Wallace, the moderator, when he insisted, he said, well, they should stand back and stand by. I mean, what is this? This is like, as they say, it is like a dog whistle. I mean, you are asking them to stand by so that when the time comes, they can start attacking the minorities. So what he is trying to do, he is trying to capitalize on majority vote. That is a purely majoritarian approach. And I can give you another example of Modi. How Modi won. Modi and Trump have many things in common, and one of them is this majoritarian approach. What you do, you appeal to the majority vote, and doing that to gain their sympathy and their vote, you start blaming the minority group.
Correct.
So that majority votes. And he is exactly trying to repeat the same episode. That's what he did in 2016. And now in 2020 also he is trying to repeat the same thing.
Well, as they say, I mean, there was this movie, Wag the Dog, if you remember. The second term of the presidential election primarily. So old shoe is better than the new one. If it fits you well, if it is in a good condition, maybe he's adopting that kind of a philosophy. But Qazi Saab, if you remember, when Donald Trump contested in the previous election, I mean, his anti-Muslim sentiments, talking about the wall all along the US-Mexico border, then the kind of approach he had towards NATO, NAFTA, China, Middle East, Southeast Asia, I mean, you name it, and he was there. But despite that, sir, even at the domestic level, if you remember, the black votes, Hispanic votes, Muslim votes, or minority votes, let's put it, I mean, a lot of people even still voted for him, and they thought that this man is somebody who's going to bring in the change the Americans want to see, like job creation, economic uplift, so on and so forth. Well, Corona is one area where he's been exposed. So is the economy. So is the foreign policy. Your take, sir.
You see, he's a very special person. In the United States, on the TV or on other programs where people come up and they argue and they, you find such people are rare. And he has charmed some people and annoyed the others. So he's polarized, the American scene quite a bit. He, of course, Hillary won the majority vote, but he won the other, the votes of the states, which really matter in the election of the US president. Despite this, there is still a feeling that he may still have a chance of winning. I don't know if after all the way he's performed over the last 4 years, why people think on those lines. And on foreign policy, you're right, because that's where he's been denial in almost every area. He tries to squeeze any country or any group, even the NATO partners. I mean, US and France, or US and Germany, I mean, his withdrawal of troops from Germany. These are things which were unheard of or unthought of in the normal course of events because of America's commitment towards NATO and peace and stability in Europe and so on and so forth. Now the military threat is not there to the United States as it was in the form of the former Soviet Union. But he sees the economic threat, and the people of the United States see an economic threat. And the unfortunate thing for them is that all the jobs have shifted to China. I remember I went 2 years ago, and in Costco I sat on a massage chair, and I asked the man, I said, "Where is this manufactured?" He said, "Sir, don't you know everything in America is manufactured in China?" I mean, this is the general sentiment. So
and it's true.
You see, the sentiment, he aroused that sentiment against China, that you people have lost your jobs, and all the jobs have gone to China because of the policies of these former leaders for the last 30 years. That was his punchline, that Hillary is a part of that establishment in the past which will continue with these policies, and you will continue to suffer. I'll get you back the jobs, and I will stop the immigration from Mexico. Our own people will get more.
But Khalsa, prior to COVID, I mean, a lot of people whom I spoke to in USA, at different levels, in different states also, they were pretty happy that this man is actually working hard to bring the jobs back to USA, and especially the white Americans who had the blue-collar jobs, whether you talk about the coal mining or iron ore mining, or talking about the uplift in the Midwest, this man was pretty successful.
The roughnecks, the farmers, they were all very happy with his approach, which the previous presidents or the administrations had not paid any attention to those people. Those people had suffered over a period of time in terms of progress, you know. The manufacturing has been lost. So all these factors combined got him the vote and finally got elected. But I don't know what the present rating is continuing, particularly after this latest dialogue between him and Biden, because at one stage Biden was 7 points ahead of him. But my own feeling was that the determinant in this case will be more these debates, because he roughs up everybody. He's a bully. Biden is more a civilized
kind of a candidate, yeah.
So the question is, are people, and sometimes it reminds me of the programs in Pakistani channels, you know, somewhat, because they're all politicians or all intellectuals, but sometimes they get at each other's throats.
Interestingly,
you know, and there's a commotion,
yeah.
You know.
It is just to generate that kind of a debate, you know, which people want to hear, getting a little aggressive, you know, people like that.
People can.
But at the end of the day, sir, because USA is the largest economy in the world, the most powerful country, look at their firepower, look at their presence everywhere on earth. But now, Ambassador Saab, there's another point. I was watching the news the other day, and on CNN there was this debate going on, and that Mr. Donald Trump, he's a billionaire, there's no doubt. He owns a lot of property, he's got investments in so many areas, whether you talk about the golf course or you talk about the manufacturing of clothes for that matter. He has his own brand, Donald Trump, and a pretty expensive brand. He has got shops all over the world, outlets everywhere. Now this man, interestingly, paid only $750 US in 2015. And you go back and just have a look at the last 15 years, out of which in 10 years he hasn't paid anything. People say that his money is rolling left, right and center, and the way the business is expanding is unbelievable, yet this man hasn't paid anything. I mean, don't you think tax paying is something pretty important? And a lot of fingers will be pointing towards the president.
Sir, it is important. But the agenda on which he got elected had nothing to do with payment of taxes. Even then, there were serious questions about his payment, about his deal making, about his own businesses, etc. But he was successful in deluding the voters, and you may call them not very educated, maybe rough-necked, states, farmers, etc., are the element of hatred, element of division. He is not known for unity. He is always there to make benefit of the divisions, and he is keen to exploit even a hint of use all kind of tactics as a deal maker to clinch a deal. And he proudly said, I'm a deal maker. And though in foreign policy area he offended his allies, say EU countries, NATO countries, etc., but back home he was successful. He challenged China, he challenged countries like Iran, like North Korea, but then made deals, and he claimed that he is going to have the biggest deal of the century. Similar cases here, $750, but he refuses to admit, refuses to divulge. Even the debate, this first debate, he didn't, and he would not. And the system helps him, assists him. So I think this factor would not make any dent as far as choice within the election
But
is
you know,
concerned.
when you talk
It
about
is very unfortunate, but it is going to happen that way.
now, Ambassador, a couple of more points. For example, when we talk about the Indian politics, they're very Pakistan-centric, anti-Pakistan sentiments they sell there, and that is one of the reasons that Modi is in power. When you talk about United States of America, so do you think the domestic policies they matter more, or the international issues and the way the American president has sort of sorted them out, that matters more? Whether you talk about one issue, he talks about withdrawal. You talk about the Palestinian issue, he supports the Israelis there. You talk about NATO, he says, well, all the NATO countries will pool in at least 2% of their GDP in defense, and they'll buy the weapons from, whether you talk about countries like Greece, who were doing, I think, the worst in the world as far as the economy is concerned. But still, you talk about creating more issues, scapegoating China most of the time, rather almost all the time, whether it's related to Corona or otherwise. Even in yesterday's speech, he was after China. So is he trying to tell the American public that this is what I'm doing at the international level, and this is what the domestic issues would be and how they'll be addressed?
Basically, the issue changes for each candidate. Now it is his second term. He knows the force of what he says, what he alleges, and he knows that economy, which has been hit otherwise before COVID-19, it was pretty good. It was in favor of him, though Joe Biden has been leading. He started with 23% lead, then it came to 7%. He is still leading, but there are too many questions marks about his leadership qualities. He has been tested, and he has not done something extraordinary as vice president for 8 years. I mean, he's a decent guy, civilized persons, democracy, he has democratic values. He is a little tough on human rights and China maybe, but otherwise there has not been very remarkable. He was overshadowed by Obama. So,
And since Obama was the first black president of USA, 44th, I remember, so yeah, things were different.
And because of his age factor as well, had he been pitted against the against him the last presidential election, he would have won hands down, I would say. He was so popular then. Now he is slipping, though after I was reading after the first debate, he collected the record donation. So it is, as Ambassador Humayun said, notable impact would be made how they bully each other during these two debates. Debates are going to be, not this time, going to have a marginal impact, sizable impact on the outcome, and people are going to love the more Mr. President misbehave with Joe Biden, and if Joe Biden is unable to stop his outburst, I think Joe Biden would suffer.
Well, interesting times ahead, sir. When you talk about the domestic American issues, for example, Obamacare, medical. Now, there is a lot of debate going on. Even yesterday they were talking about it. You talk about education, and the Secretary for Education in USA is somebody who's never been able to manage that kind of a fund before, and that was one of the major debates. Normally, we always talk about the Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, but since there's a whole long portfolio and so many people. Talking about the judge recently appointed, again, that has become a bone of contention between the two rivals. You talk about the COVID issue, the way it was managed, handled, and whatever happened, we all know. Initially, he was thinking that nothing is going to happen later on, and maybe his actions were slow. But at the end of the day, look at the number of Americans who died. You talk about international relations for that matter. We'll come on that part later. But even at the domestic level, creating jobs or COVID and all these other areas which I've mentioned, your take on that part, sir. These are important.
Well, domestically speaking, normally some people only consider economic success as the major benchmark or yardstick for success, not counting the social cost in that. So as far as, now let me give you one example. Military dictators, for example, Pinochet in Chile. Now, if you look at his tenure, 17 years, Chile progressed a lot economically.
Oh, yes.
GDP growth was very high. But the social cost Chilean society paid was enormous. And the same rule I will apply here. We should not just look at how many jobs he has created. Maybe he has created jobs, he has been successful, and those people who just look at his economic performance will be committing a major mistake, because the other social cost of his policies are grave. For example, you have talked about Obamacare. Now, what is going to happen? Obamacare in Senate also, they have thin majority, just 1 or 2 votes. But if they cancel it, millions of people will lose medical cover, which is an enormous cost to common people. And talking about COVID also, most of the people who have lost their lives, over 200,000. 200,000 is not a small number, it's a big number.
Oh, yes.
In one country, 200,000 people dying in 6 months, short period, is a huge number. And if you look at the details, most of these people who died, they belong to minorities. They were African Americans, they were Hispanic, and moreover, they belong to lower strata of society where they lived, in one flat, there are, 5, 7, 10 people living, crammed, housing, they had no medical coverage. So these are the people who died. Now, what that shows that even if he has been able to create jobs, otherwise, socially speaking, his policies have been disaster, and that was shown that was evident in the COVID crisis, and he has been unable to focus on COVID and resolve it. And Joe Biden was very right when he pointed out that he should be smart, and which Trump didn't like. He said, no, I have the monopoly to use the word smart. So he reacted negatively. Anyway, so then coming to the judge, interestingly, if you look at American history, most of the judges in the past, it so happened, it's a quirk of history that Republican presidents have had more chances of appointing judges, because judge is there for lifetime mostly, unless the judge retires or dies. And I was looking
Even
at
she
the
was
details.
93 when she passed away,
Yes.
if I'm not wrong.
No, she was not the Chief Justice, but if you look at Chief Justices during the past 70 years, not even a single Chief Justice was appointed by Democratic President. It so happened that the Chief Justice always died in the past 70 years, died when Republican was the president. And Republican president was able to appoint a conservative Chief Justice. And even now the Chief Justice is conservative. So America is now at a very crucial stage in terms of law also. Total number of judges is 9. And now if he appoints, and his appointment will surely be approved by the Senate where they have majority, this Barrett, if she is elected, then there will be 6 conservative judges and only 3 liberal judges. And when we talk about conservative judges, that means they are against Obamacare, they are against abortion, they are against LGBT rights, and so many other, overall, you know, in society. So it will have a far-reaching impact on American society if that judge comes, and she will be there on the bench. So overall, my conclusion is that domestically speaking, though Trump has been able to create some jobs, that can be counted as an achievement. But focusing on simply economic achievement is wrong approach. Anywhere in the world, we should look at what other social costs the society is paying. And Trump's 4 year has caused tremendous harm. The social fabric is, you know, breaking at the seams, which is a negative impact.
The American dream, the American philosophy, that doesn't exist in his point of view, unfortunately,
Yes.
because he has a different approach towards so many issues. Now, sir, if you remember, during the last election, there were issues about the leakage of emails regarding the lady Hillary Clinton. And then there was issue that, well, the Russians most likely are supporting the other party. And then now this time the Chinese are being blamed. What sort of an influence do you think the other major global powers can have on the election of USA? Because generally, sir, I believe that a country like USA, I mean, the number 1 country in the world, I mean, it is not that easy to sort of, you know, push towards the desired result, sir, where you can do something inside or you know, you can put a lot of money in the campaigns. I mean, everything at the end of the day is very visible there. Your take, sir.
You see, you have to look at it from 2 angles. One is the angle of intellectuals, people who are well aware of what is happening in America. They are at a higher level, the elite people. You cannot influence them so easily. They have their own views. They are divided between 2 parties, strongly support the Republicans or strongly support the Democrats. And they don't easily shift ground. The issue is more with the common man, you know, the average person. And that's where I think the media plays a very important role, particularly the television. Because the average man may not be even reading the newspapers. Now that the television is such a wide coverage, even in Pakistan, a lot of people don't read newspapers in the morning. They look at the TV and they think they're well informed. And if it's necessary, they may look into one newspaper which appeals to them. So in that case, I think even now, the common man is not going to be affected by the Chinese influence or the Russian intervention or any other country trying to play games with the American elections. But the politicians then, of course, their approach is different, because even if there is an effort on the part of, as we know that in case of the Russians, they were blamed for the last election siding with Trump. To what extent they did and how they did, that's not very clear at this point of time, and they themselves are in denial. But the common man looks at other factors. You know, he looks at it more from his local situation.
Yeah.
And that is the one that affects him. You see in our case also, the basis on which the present government got its vote was a scenario at that time. Over 2 years, the economic situation has undergone a negative transformation and public opinion has changed. So these are factors which come on a day-to-day basis. And I think in this election also in America, the people will be conditioned by what is the recent situation in around them, you know, their jobs, their welfare, their medical help, their insurances, their other facilities.
school.
Because most of the people in USA, they live check to check, sir. This is
Yeah,
what the life
that's
is.
right. A lot of them live even beyond beyond their means, and they continue.
What you are earning today is what you have already spent 6 months ago.
Yeah. So you're continuing to pay your debt, and everything is on leasing. Your car is on lease, your house is on lease. So there the interest rate would affect them more than what the Russians can do in an election like that. So I think that is more also played up, in accusatory terms, played up by one against the other. The social media is a very important factor.
Indeed.
Now, you see. And people who are, they're more educated people in America because of the situation that is there. As a result, they get more influence. To what extent that role is there, I don't know exactly how to sort of evaluate that, but I'm sure that the impact would be higher. And then there is also the migrant community in America. There are people from all over the world who live in America. The American dream has attracted people, for the last 6-7 decades. After the Second World War, the push has been towards America of migration. And that is also a factor. So I think this debate will have an impact, and I think that the media will play a very important role. And the economic conditions, because what our colleague just now pointed out, that the economic conditions improved. The Ambassador Sana mentioned this, but now the economic conditions are not the same as over the last 2.5 years.
Primarily due to COVID, yeah?
Yes, COVID and the impact of that on the overall society. So that may be hurting him. Plus the fact is that America, there's a fatigue of financial fatigue of the two wars, the Afghan war and more than that the Iraq war.
Yeah.
Because trillions of dollars have been lost in these wars where nothing has been accomplished. As such, so the people feel that kind of money should have been spent within America rather than going in for these military escapades in situations where it could have been handled in another way, in a better way.
All right. Now, so talking about the Middle Eastern issue, let's focus on the Palestinian issue. The two-state theory supported by so many countries, or for that matter, we'll talk about Iran, the P5+1, JCPOA and all. Total U-turn on that ground, and obviously in knowing the European partners in that particular regard, or Chinese or Russians for that matter. Now, sir, two major areas. Let's talk about the Middle Eastern issue. Biden, I'm sure, has a different approach, whereas Donald Trump calls it the deal of the century. Changing the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, and then talking about the first visit was in Saudi Arabia. First international visit was in Saudi Arabia, where he was pretty, I would say, smart to be able to sell such a huge number of weapons to the Saudis, primarily just to make sure that, well, Iran is against you. When it comes to Palestinians, again, a total different formula. Do you think, sir, these two issues could be reversed or could be renegotiated at some stage, despite the fact that Donald Trump has been able to muster a lot of support from the Gulf states like Bahrain, UAE for that matter, maybe followed by Oman, God knows, maybe Saudi Arabia soon. How do you see that part, sir?
You asked pointed questions. Could it be reversed? The other thing are just history. We know that how it happened, how he changed, how he took U-turns. In my view, it would not change. Even if he is defeated and Biden comes, it would be very difficult for Biden to reverse what he has done. And there would be a mild declaration of support for Palestinians. There would be voices here and there. We may call them sane voices. But in practical terms, what has been given in by those who upheld Arab cause for the last 40 years, I mean all the Arabs, if they have agreed secretly or openly, nobody is going to give back what has been snatched on a platter back to Palestinian. So Palestinian people are going to suffer more. And there may be
No
more.
reversal of policies.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. If we want to delude ourselves like ostrich, then it is a different theory. We are very emotional people. You look at international level. Who had spoken in support of Palestine? You must have followed the debate in the UN. Say Iran, Pakistan, Turkey. And there is already a beeline to have some kind of a deal, some kind of a cooperation agreements and all those things with Israel. Israel lobby, you think, would allow any incoming president to change or reverse it? Impossible. Even in our country, there is a
But sir, my point is, if you remember, when Obama was the president, Joe Biden was the vice president, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited United States of America. He did not meet the president. He addressed the Republicans there, and again he mustered a lot of support, and he was so blunt, so loud, so aggressive that Obama even couldn't do anything. The point is that is this the American or the Jewish American lobby that is so strong out there, sir?
This is what I pointed out. Would it was fresh in my memory. That's why I said, do you think if Biden is back as a president, he would be able to reverse it? No way. Little soft support in terms of say financial aid, some kind of concessions, other political concessions. Maybe they are allowed to have more share in autonomy, some formula, or they would be allowed to stay on, or there would be some, I would say, cap on settlements in West Bank area. That would be very small. Palestinian, you have to look at what Abbas has said, President. It is tragic, unfortunate, and though the Saudi monarch has said that they are not going to recognize, but they are helping.
As they say, the might is right, and that is what is going to prevail at the end of the day. Last couple of minutes, a quick comment, and that is about the Afghan problem, Afghan issue, or you may call it the future of Afghanistan, where I think the regional countries are playing a brilliant role. Abdullah was here on a 3-day official visit, sir. He met almost all the major decision makers in Pakistan, whether the president or the prime minister or the chief or the speaker of the National Assembly and the chairman Senate and so on and so forth, the foreign minister. But sir, interestingly now, because unfortunately during the last decade or so, the Americans always look at Pakistan through their Afghan lens, and that is very unfortunate. Now, do you think this particular visit of Abdullah is going to be very productive as far as the future of Afghan settlement is concerned, peace is concerned, and then the future course of action, maybe early elections or something? And if Biden wins, do you think he's going to adopt the same policy earlier adopted by Trump? Because Trump wanted his troops to be pulled out, whereas in most of the cases, since they have spent so much, they would like to keep a certain number there.
There are two aspects to your question. One, Abdullah's visit here, how productive it was, and secondly, how America will relate in future to Afghan problem. I don't think that Abdullah's visit I would call very productive unless I see some concrete outcome. But at least I will call it positive step. Not very productive, time will say, but positive. Why I am concluding that it is positive? Because probably this is for the first time after a long time, Abdullah, who wields, after Ashraf Ghani, he is probably the second most important person there. He visited Pakistan in good faith, and he his past, in the past he has been hurling accusations against Pakistan, but probably this was the first time that in his entire visit yesterday and today, I was closely observing, he never said anything against, he did not hurl accusations, he did not, charge that Pakistan is, as they have been doing, especially Abdullah had been doing, that Pakistan is supporting
Even I was
terrorists.
just told by my producer that the Prime Minister has just tweeted and he said that, well, we had a very interesting conversation and I really wish him all the best in his
Yes.
future endeavors, and
So
it was a great, I would say, get together between the two leaders. Yeah.
That's why I am saying that it is a positive step, and it will pave the way for more cooperation between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and probably a peaceful solution may come. This is one aspect. So I call it positive. Secondly, how America will relate to it, as Honorable Ambassador also said, that whatever Trump has done, it will be very difficult to unwind that. So more or less, I think even if Democratic Party wins, Joe Biden wins, they will stick to the commitment of withdrawing their troops. From 12,000, they have reduced to 8,000, and soon Trump is saying that we will reduce it to 4,000.
Yeah.
And I think even if Joe Biden wins, I think he will continue the same policy, because if he retains more soldiers in Afghanistan, then it will not be popular with American people.
Kaisa.
I think the visit was well timed. My colleague has just pointed out, and I fully agree with him, that Dr. Abdullah at one stage had a very aggressive tone towards Pakistan. But times have changed.
What changed his argument?
The United States is withdrawing from Afghanistan. They were the key supporters. NATO was there, US troops were there. They are withdrawing.
Since we said that it should be Afghan-owned, Afghan-led kind of a reconciliation, and we do not have any favorites. Maybe earlier we had Taliban as favorites, but now, sir, keeping a balance between the Taliban and these Panjsheris, or the Northern Lines for that matter, how difficult is that going to be for us?
You see, one party or the other becomes favorite because it depends on what the other parties are doing against you or for you. If the other parties were hobnobbing with India and allowing India to use its territory against Pakistan, we would naturally support that party which would not allow this sort of a thing. I'm just talking in general terms, not taking any names of a party or a group. And that is for Pakistan. You see, the situation in Afghanistan is a military situation. It is not, it's not a situation where a section officer of the government will go and find out what's happening. That's where the army comes in, the ISI comes in, because there is violence going on. I mean, the Taliban are attacking government troops. They were earlier, doing that to the Americans till the Americans withdrew from the combat. So the point is that Abdullah is a wise man. He's a mature personality, and he is an important Tajik leader. And he felt that the time had now come to bring about a balance. And also for Pakistan, it was important to start a dialogue with the other Afghan leaders. I mean, we are seen by the other parties as supporting the Pashtuns only. And that should not be, because Afghanistan, there are ethnicities,
Yes,
there are Tajiks, there are
Uzbeks,
there are Pashtuns, there are Amaks, there are,
Turks,
yeah. So from that point of view, our policy should be that we should have the best of relations with all the political, the ethnic, the tribal and the religious leaders. Now, that is easier said than done, but at least our effort should be toward to engage them. And I think in that context,
So this visit seems to be a productive one.
it is a positive development. With one visit, mistrust and suspicion does not get eliminated.
But at least it's a CBM, sir.
But no,
It's a CBM.
it's confidence building measure, and Pakistan has played an important role for bringing the Taliban and the Americans onto the conference table and getting a Doha agreement. We were pushing. Again, now what they want, one second, let me finish. What they want is reduction in violence and ceasefire. And in this visit, he must have emphasized this to the Pakistani leadership.
Sir, about the same point, sir.
Basically, it is very good visit from from the point of view of both the countries, in order to keep the dialogue continuing. Now, could it lead to any results, outcomes, concrete, tangible? You can feel them? No. My assertive answer is no. We have been looking for the visit of Abdullah. He came back after 12 and a half years. We have been with Ambassador Humayun and Qazi Humayun Sahab, have been there. We met him. He has been a wonderful, gracious host. Always spoke about as a changed man in favor of a relationship, improved relationship between the two countries. But within Afghanistan, his position is not that strong. There is already a statement coming from President Ashraf Ghani, and there is also a statement coming from Panjshir. And how they are going to react to the implementation and power sharing, would they be able to sit with Taliban, or Taliban would be able
that
be
is
in a
something
position.
pretty important, future
So
course
it
of
is
action,
very
yeah.
difficult. His own position, in my view, is weak. And of course, we have not, I hope so, we have not put all our cards on his ability to deliver, because I think it was
At the end of the day, Ambassador, I think it is going to be a collective effort. Parties from within and then the external players as well. I think, sir, I was just told that we're totally running out of time. But inshallah, we will definitely be talking about this issue in the coming programs as well. My pleasure to have you, Ambassador Sanamullah.
Thank you.
Qais Saab, it was a pleasure to have you as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your presence as well. And that's all we have for this. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.